Hello, hello. All right, so today is not a dark screen. Today is my beautiful face, all naked, no makeup, and my hair being crazy like always. Look at this. Yeah, my hair has a mind of its own, but that's not the theme. The theme is love doesn't hurt. Why am I coming to this theme after so many years? Simple and easy. There are moments in life where you are closing chapters in your life and you're releasing burdens that are not yours to carry. And when I started the movement, my mission or vision was to start with peeling the onion and then working with the fermenting the hard disk and stuff like that until we got to the point of the understanding of true unconditional love being the key for not only learning who you are in this lifetime, but also how to feel complete without the need to get hurt when you love someone else. The reason why I started this mission and vision is because of the fact that I myself wanted to learn in real time how to transform and transmute the energies. Love is one of the highest frequencies. Unfortunately, a lot of people speak about a matrix, speak about entities, speak about devils and demons, sinners and saints, and things like that, but no one takes accountability of where they are in the whole entire spectrum. At the time that I started this with an intention of pure unconditional love where I felt invited to share this with a specific group of people. And one of the things that one of these people in this interaction once told me was love shouldn't hurt or love doesn't hurt. And at the moment, the theme started lingering in my head, and I started realizing where that identity came from. We're talking about a person that was always hot and cold, probably an avoidant, and I reflected back to that person the same energy that I was receiving at the moment because I was still in transition. So, what does that mean? That means that even when I was vibrating on a higher frequency, when you mingle with lower frequencies, people that are still hurting, you come back into that frequency if you don't know how to be sovereign in your own energy. Which is beautiful. I'm not judging the person or myself. I am just speaking about this because it's very important that if you actually truly believe in the movement of Christianity or Jesus, which I'm not religious in this case, I am more spiritual. What that means is I don't fall under the umbrella of any specific religion. I study them from the outside because the promise is that at the end, we're all going to be one. Therefore, I don't want to fall into the predicament of fighting about whose religion is better or whose religion has the truth or not, because no one is the owner of your own truth. And you cannot find the truth until you're authentically yourself. So, why we're speaking about love doesn't hurt and how can we love unconditionally based on the teachings of Jesus and understand where we stand when we are interacting in something that we call a love partnership, an interaction, a relationship, marriage, whatever you want to call it. boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. It really doesn't matter. We're not talking about genders here. Oh my God, my hair is crazy today. It's too funny. It's way too funny. I cutted my hair myself, making a pause because they messed up my hair. It was all long, all the way down to Neverland. And then I cut my hair a bit myself yesterday. But this part right here was messed up by the hairstylist. She didn't do the style that I wanted. So I had to actually cut it myself. And while it grows, is a mess. I always actually have a ponytail on it to avoid having to see it. And you know what? That's where we're going. Yep, el chongo. All right, now we're comfortable. All right, so why love itself never wounds you? Because when you have an open heart and you understand love for what it is and not what you were told it should be, the story changes. And why the story changes is because I always say, I see behind the veil. The veil of illusion is all that we as human portray to be to hide our fears or insecurities. And I can read people from afar quickly. The problem in being an empath is that we get that understanding, and mostly being indoctrinated in the Bible. I was under the understanding that putting the other cheek was always being compassionate and accepting lower vibrational frequencies. I would say disrespect, and seeing it as compassionate, becoming the understanding part and letting them know it's okay. I know you're having a bad day. Where I was missing the part of self respect. That can show off as me not having respect for myself. Therefore, people will automatically think they can misbehave in front of me, treat me however they want, and always come back and the door will be wide open, which happen frequently because of the kind of empathy that I developed based on the lacks that I had when I was a little child. So we're bringing this theme out because one of the beautiful things about the full moon is that we're releasing the past and we're leaving the ashes behind. And one of the beautiful things about the new moon is that we're doing things with great intentions. And my intention here is not to judge anyone. If I start judging anyone, I will be judging myself as well, because I lived and I reacted out of emotions based on my ignorance about the true armor and the true significance of unconditional love, which has been something that has been indoctrinated to us by our families, by the way that we were raised, etc., etc. So let's get into it. And true unconditional love, the way Jesus has spoken about it, speaks about wholeness. And I did a post in my community post last night that is actually a little bit extensive, but it's actually very nice. If you want to go read it, it's beautiful. My lives are regularly a little bit long. I am not here to create a community of avoidant people. I'm here just to make sure that whatever I learn, that Abba teaches me as I grow myself, is to have it out there, not as a form of self expression, but as a form of future generations to be able to have something they can abide to or understand more easily outside of the indoctrination of this world, because we're moving into a new age and era where a lot of falseness is going to be cut in half. And I know this kind of content is what's going to help future generations not to repeat the patterns of our cultural behaviors and other societal standards that actually are separating you from true unconditional love. So, you love as an overflow of your spirit, whatever you have within you. My aunt used to say all the times, from the virtues of the heart speaks the mouth. One of the things that I've never controlled was my reactions. And the reason why, there was an inner wound that got triggered. And I've always been a person that had to justify myself just to have attention. So it's a bad habit that I had to learn to stop. How do you learn to stop it? With boundaries. Boundaries were never existent in my home. I didn't have a example of how loving boundaries should stay. I had an example about how conditioning and manipulation worked around the house in order to keep things the way that they wanted to present it, based on societal standards, because of the class that my grandparent actually had, or the status my grandpa had in where we lived. So one of the things that we have to understand about wholeness is that love is not a transaction, and it's not self-abandonment. Mostly it's not tolerating any harm. And when we do not have or have not been taught what boundaries are, or people don't respect our boundaries, and for us to receive their attention or love, we get conditioned to act a certain way to receive it, then we think that we're doing the right thing. It's not until you finally decide to say, wait, a lot of people, I was having a conversation with some different friends actually, and I came into the understanding that there was a specific spirit that will come into any kind of relationships that I had and work its way into me to lower my vibration. And then I started seeing it from the outside. How can that happen if I am supposedly vibrating high? And it's all related on how you perceive the world and what you believe about love. So that's why love doesn't hurt. What truly hurts is the parts of you that you're avoiding to confront in order to stop the old patterns and live through the true patterns of what a true interaction should become. So, or should mostly be handled, which is different. So, unconditional love from the spirit, not the wound. It's where love flows from your inner life. If you don't feel happy with where you are in life, that's one thing. But if you don't feel happy with yourself, that's another trick. Totally a different scenario. You may not be where you want to be in life, but if you do have the ability to introspect, which is a word I learned on the journey, and understand that no one is responsible for your own happiness, you will never feel lonely. Because being a lonely child, I don't have brothers or sisters, I learned to be way too self-reliant. But then in the other side of things, when it came to love, I didn't know what self-reliance meant because I didn't understand boundaries. And that is beautiful to learn. It doesn't matter at what age. It's beautiful to learn because no one can show you a different side of what love is until they understand that. So, unconditional love has nothing to do with loving anyone, no matter what they've done or how they treat you. Unconditional love means that you have a capacity, an emotional intelligence that will allow you to separate yourself from that interaction and understand that that person has their own journey and experience to live. Not because you want them to come back, but because they have their own soul agreement to work with. There are people that are okay receiving people back from the past that have shown with actions they have changed. But this world is not way too ready for that. There's very little souls that understand what true unconditional love is and the story of Hosea, which is one of the things that Abba pointed out yesterday. When you see that story and you see how Hosea's wife went through ups and downs, and then Abba itself told him to take her back. Anyone in this world with the egotistical pride people live will never accept that. Now, a person that is obedient and understands that everybody has their own journey, that's a different story, and there's not many of around our environment that will do that. Love without fear. Um if you hear something, it's my mom. She's speaking out with somebody. I don't know. She knows I'm live, but she forgets. She's 84. So it's understanding. Anywho, she knows no boundaries. All right. So fear creates conditions. The thing with fear is that you have to understand where your fear is coming from. Let's say that you were told that because you have X condition, Y condition, or X personality, no one will understand you. And you believe that lie. Therefore, whenever you come into an interaction, you're scared that they know who you are authentically because you think you're going to be rejected. And because of that fear of rejection, then you're going to start hiding the truth. And I capture that very quickly. That's why my friends at times still ask me if I'm a witch. I don't know what they mean with that. I don't practice any witchcraft at all. I don't like it. I did learn about it when I was younger because I saw paranormal activities and I wanted to experience the knowledge so I can have it to cover myself. But that's totally different. I believe when you are protected by God and you understand what Jesus is speaking about, and you start and make a decision to live a life where you try your best, but you actually stop hurting others based on your perception of things, then your life changes because it transmutes and transforms all that lower frequency energy into higher frequency energy. And instead of being combative or reactive, you can have a conversation without allowing your emotions to affect it. And that is not something that everybody reaches at all points of their life. I used to be a firecracker because of the need that I had of over explaining myself to be understood when I was younger. But I understood that only paints you for being dramatic or not actually living the life that you profess when you understand and believe the words of Jesus. So I saw the dissonance. And when I saw that dissonance, I say, why, if I believe this, I am acting this way? And that's when I discovered that the lower frequencies that were around me got to a point in where PTSD attacked my nervous system based on remembrance, because of my photographic memory of all things that happened to me, that these people were keen into reenacting or making me relieve them by supposedly have many failures around the way of supposedly loving interactions, which actually was not the trigger. The trigger mostly came from, I would say, the trigger came mostly from dark energy doing spell work that I understood was done because I could see it in visions. And also how my nervous system had a remembrance of a bad experience I had in a younger age. So when those two mixed, the energies dropped me into a lower frequency where I relived old and new experiences at the same time and got myself overwhelmed. It doesn't mean that you have to stop interacting with the world in order to regain balance. In my case, based on my spirituality and my gifts and abilities, I do at times have to use hermit mode to not only introspect, but to see things from the outside so I know what type of demons or entities I'm fighting with. Because the fight is not mine. I release the fight to the one above. Therefore, the only fight that I have with myself, which every human has, is the duality of the mind. When that comes along and it gets triggered, that's where you find how to transmute it and how to heal it. And it's very difficult to explain it in one session. So we're going to move along about love without fear. If you fear is based in all experiences, and you tell people not to bring your fear with you on all luggages, but you're bringing your fear and the other person cannot, then there's automatic rejection. Why? Because you want to pour your baggage onto the other person, but the other person has no ability to speak about the baggage to clear it. So, why do you have to unpack your luggage? When you're in reactive mode, your nervous system is going to automatically go back to that experience and react from that experience. And that's reacting from the wound. When you heal your heart and you understand projections and you understand who you are, then you stop reacting and you start speaking from your heart because you can differentiate one experience from the other. Now, Jesus teaches that perfect love casts out fear. It's not his words specifically. I would say it was John that said that. But mostly the type of love that he came to teach, which is unconditional love, it's what can get you to become a healer without allowing those energies to lower your frequency. And that's what he did. Fearless love is not reckless. A lot of people think that losing themselves for another, it's love. And that's not love. That's a risk. That's not love at all. Fearless love is not acting recklessly or impulsively. It's rooted in understanding the teachings of Jesus and the sovereignty of the God-like entity that we are within ourselves. Love with boundaries. He never allowed anyone to proclaim him a king. He created a boundary by separating himself from the crowd, staying in a separate place where he prayed, right? So the world making him that king after his passing because of his sacrifice is just canceling what he was and what he lived for. Therefore, indoctrinating people to believe that has helped people to become martyrs or live in the victim standpoint. And trust me, no judgment here. I was there once. Unconditional love versus unconditional access is not the same. I can have unconditional love for you, but when I say access denied, access is completely denied, not because I believe I'm better than anyone, because I know already the energy and I understand the patterns of the energy. Yet I can also see if the patterns have changed or not, which is another theme. Let's go to love as forgiveness, not reentry. This is something people don't understand. When I ask anyone for forgiveness, I'm not asking for them to open the door for me. I don't care. Not because I believe I am superior or inferior from anyone. I don't see anyone above, under my shoulder or above, right? I believe in equality. And even though I understand that unconditional love is not for everyone, and that some people that have not disrespected you do deserve a re-entry in your life, that is one thing. But if I have ever offended anyone, intentionally or unintentionally, based on my wounding, my forgiveness for however they reacted to my projections is a way that I make peace with understanding where I am today. But I cannot expect forgiveness from them to me, or vice versa, depending on how the road goes or how the road is going. Why? Because it's a selfless act of love for myself, because you need to stop carrying crosses that are not yours to bear. Even when you have good intentions and you think you're doing the right thing, you may be doing things that are not correct. And no one needs to accept the way that you believe love should be, right? It's the same way, one way and the other. Now, people that do transform, they start by grieving and forgiving, because what supposedly broke your heart is not other than us running away from confronting ourselves, not the other person. No one breaks your heart. I've always said that. No one breaks your heart. So the first time the person asked me or told me love shouldn't hurt this much, I said, love doesn't hurt. What it hurts is to heal. And I was on the right path, but I was still learning. Now that I have the answer, I share it with a lot of love and without expectations, because that's what unconditional love does. Don't hold grudges, don't hold regrets, don't hold shame, because everyone has their own journey to go through. It's like a lot of people believe that when you ask or say you forgive them, you're begging for their attention or their interaction. And in my world, if I see something I did wrong, I want to be in peace with myself, not to be accepted, just to be humble enough to accept my mistake, but not proud enough or egotistical enough to believe anyone has to accept it, which is a very, very good difference, because a lot of people that that believe they're entitled to a forgiveness can stay stuck in a pattern of waiting. And in this lifetime, no one waits for anyone. There is a special timing in life. There is a special window in life. Some people deal with trying to understand themselves more years than others, depending on their understanding of religion and other things. But when you truly want the truth and you ask for the truth to be given, it will be given to you. And in this case, my biggest dream was to understand the true teachings of Jesus, not indoctrinated, not for me to believe that I'm a guru or a teacher, but no, just to understand it so I can see the world through his eyes and stop that need to be understood that I once had, which is a totally different interaction. Now, many people think that you want to learn unconditional love just to have a partner. And honestly, if you don't understand unconditional love for yourself and you live conditioning love, you're always going to have or control or manipulation or victim standpoint or different characteristics in you that are always going to separate you from really living a true righteous life. And we're not talking here about the pure and the cast and the saints and the sinners. We're talking here about the low, I would say the high intellectual capacity to understand emotions so much that you stop allowing your emotions to dictate how you're going to do your next move. And when it comes predictable, it becomes a pattern. And when it becomes a pattern, it becomes an avoidance mechanism. And when you start living in avoidance, then you start living always in the victim standpoint because everyone did something to you, but you didn't do anything, right? And it's not like that. No one can do to you anything that you don't allow it or permit it. Therefore, forgiveness is not a reentry. Asking for forgiveness is not begging, depending on who sees it or how you express it. And at the end of the row, my purpose is a mission. It's a mission for people to stop living from conditioned love and start remembering the beauty of living under unconditional love. And this is not for myself, but it will be something beautiful that generations to come could experience if us as parents or future parents, or I will say, I don't know, somebody that becomes an influencer, etc., can actually impersonate not as a false mask, as a true heartfelt life. Love is kind of a service, but it's not a self erasure. In the moment that your voice wants to be silenced, there is no love. That's a condition. There is a wise saying that wisdom is silent, but there is also a need for humanity to see the two sides of the sanctuary to actually gain that wisdom. I believe that we all are vessels. We're not here to represent a false face of who we are. We're here to discover who we are when we love unconditionally, which is totally different, because the persona that you created around your young age and your years or your career or whatever you do for a living has nothing to do with who or your identity. Your identity is more how your heart speaks. It's not the true beautiful words that you say. It's literally how you act with another. And when I saw myself in that lower vibration where I became totally reactive, developing this PTSD condition, I was like, okay, there is something here that is not making sense. If this is the way that I feel and this is how my heart feels about this, then we need to understand how Jesus was able to heal others without allowing his virtue to come outside of him, which is part of what the Bible teaches. Love as truth telling. What is truth telling? The Bible expresses as your yeses are yeses and your nos are nos. Regardless of how bad you feel for anyone, you don't do them any good by accepting their behaviors or patterns. And we all have to learn this. It got a point in the interaction where I guess what I was expecting or asking from someone, another person was asking for me. And when I saw myself saying, wait, why would you like me to do this way when that's what I want to heal from myself? I started seeing the mirror effect, the true mirror effect, not the false fog and mirror effect that was imposed on my experience. And I saw that the same as me, that person had to learn the things that they were telling me they could see in me, that they accepted in me. Because if you're accepting that from me, you're also not respecting yourself. And if you're not respecting yourself, then that is an attachment style and not true unconditional love. That is kind of unconditional in a way, because you're accepting the person for who they are. But at the same time, it's a one-sided thing because we're willing to accept that person for who they are, but that person is not enlightened or awakened enough to see that beautiful interaction and be reciprocal to it. So it's beautiful how the mirrors are different. There's self mirrors and there are false mirrors and there's fog and there's illusions. So going through all of it and understanding it is how your heart doesn't get broken. The problem is that when you're consumed in a specific expectation, then you're conditioning it and your heart is being broken because you wanted a specific outcome, but you were not being honest about the experience. Truth telling, a lot of people say, well, what doesn't kill you make you stronger, right? And that's true. But A person that truly has to learn unconditional love for themselves so they can actually share it with another, the only way to open their heart is by breaking it. And not because we have to break anybody's heart. I hope in my life I was more of a catalyst than a heartbreaker, because that's not my intention at all. What I believe about what we think love is what actually makes us fall into the category of being a heartbreaker or cold or whatever. But that is for another day. Love as a choice and not an emotion. You see, when I did the Battle of Love, the Awakening, and I did the interviews about unconditional love, everybody said I made one decision and I committed to that decision for good, the bad, and the ugly. And there was an understanding, but there was respect. Problem is when there is no respect, because when there is no respect, it means that the other person is taking a projection as a personal attack or offense. And there is no chance of true communication. So when you love unconditionally, you practice that. It's really not a feeling, it's what you practice in your whole personal life. And when you have not been around that practice and you are conditioned or indoctrinated in religion or in dogmas or societal standards into a specific perception of love, then you don't understand the interaction of unconditional love. And that's what we're here. We're here to evolve, transform, transmute all that hurt into knowledge and wisdom, so we can, at a point in life, be vibrating high enough that we can vibrate in that frequency of understanding and compassion without pity or self-pity. So how do we love like this? Heal your heart first. And that's why love hurts. If you don't want to heal your heart, then love is always going to hurt, because you want love to heal you. And you have to heal your love to experience the healing of true love. So there is a saying that you cannot pour living water from a cracked vessel. And even when we are all vessels, our actions truly show where we are in the unconditional love practice. And our contradictions actually show what we are battling inside. As I always said, I'm not battling or fighting with anyone external. I'm battling my own duality. People see themselves as a storm because they're not willing to look at themselves. It's easier to see what another did. If you don't look at yourself, you're always going to be the storm. There's going to be drama everywhere you go. Always, you're going to be the one that was on the bottom of the barrel, the one that was not looked out for, the one that was ignored, the one that was rejected, etc. It's not the same when it's imposed on you. It's totally different. But hey, people think they have game, but when you understand the game from the other side of scripture, you allow people to play their game their own way and let them believe what they want to believe. I know who I am, I know where I stand, and I know when I had to defend myself, it was because it was enough. It was too much of a disrespect. And regardless of it, it was a part of the experience that I would not miss for anything in life. Because without that experience, I wouldn't learn how to value true connections and not false ones. And that is beautiful, because that allowed me to understand who was who in the paradigm, who was a true friend and who wasn't, from everywhere, family, friends, everything. And that is beautiful, not because you want to separate yourself from everyone, but because you know who to give to and who not to. You know where your energy is being leaked and where your energy, or where you can recall your soul. So it's a beautiful, beautiful experience. But some people don't get out of the hurt mentality and they can never see it as an experience. They're always going to see it as an imposed or inflicted pain, which is totally different. All right, so heal your heart first, anchor your identity in God, not people. This will remove fears, insecurities, and bargaining. Um, a lot of people think that bargaining is something right to do, and that is pure manipulation. And unfortunately, sometimes when we take things like kind of on the childish aspect of life, then we don't understand that we're putting ourselves in that space. So this is beautiful to learn. Set boundaries that protect your peace. If you know that a person has a specific pattern and you know it's going to take time for them to heal it, actions are the only thing they're going to show if the person has transformed or not. Not because you want him in your life, not because you're opening that access. Sometimes when the access is closed, it's done, move along and move forward. But it's just depending the type of spiritual connection that you have with people. Some of them are imposed connections, others are not. It's just depending how mature you can be and how spiritual you are, as well as how discerning you can become of different aspects. Love from overflow and not depletion. If it drains you, it's not unconditional love. And it got to a point where all the time I was signaled as an energy vampire, when it was them, the ones that were on my energy, draining the knowledge because of my willingness to just share who I was with them. So at a moment in time, I guess that they got what they wanted. They wanted to paint me a specific way, and that is the way they showed me out at the world or friends or family to see me. And even though I had my own wounds to heal, and I may had some patterns to heal, everyone's intentions were different. I saw who had a good intention and who hadn't a good intention. I know who profited from it and who didn't. And I know who paid who. And the funny part is that there's receipts everywhere. Yet, whoever wants to be blind and doesn't want to see it because they're believing a false lie, then that's fine. I am not here to take a side. I'm here to say it was something that it was a blessing in disguise for those who looked at themselves, transformed, transmuted, and grew from the experience. So the beautiful part of all this is with the old moon or the full moon and the new moon is the perception that I have from the whole entire experience. When I can still be in the blah, 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 I can see it now from, wow, we have so many beautiful things that we can heal so we can stop the patterns and we can help future generations to come, that I wouldn't want it any other way. Not because I am a martyr or I want to act like I'm the strongest. I had my good and bad days. Still, at times, I work with releasing expectations. I work with understanding who speaks from the heart and who speaks from the wound. But I stopped even when I could see the, I would say, even when I could see the soul and how high aspected that soul was. Even I can see the soul of someone and what energy that soul has, what they're living today, and how they're acting today is what tells me who they are in this moment. And before, I used to believe that everyone could reach that kind of level in their soul development. And life has showed me that it doesn't happen when people are not aware of lower vibrations like it happened to me. I was in a very high vibration, and from a sudden, all of these several, I would say, planned interactions and attacks came over to confuse me. So I supposedly couldn't see what was happening, but I saw it all. And even when I saw it all, part that I play, but I cannot to feel, I will say, that they need to be forgiven. They did. That is a personal thing for everyone who has the own maturity to be humble enough to get to that point. That's fine. Whoever doesn't, that is fine. It's part of the game of life, and learn how to play it. It's more of a spiritual thing that comes with understanding your emotions, but also who you are in this plane. What's your spiritual rank in this plane? And how to close the leaks in your soul so the attacks cannot actually, it's not that cannot be committed, but they won't penetrate your soul. Something that no one can take away from me is the pureness of my heart, regardless of my own inner wounds and my own reactions. How I see the world and how I see humanity, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm not going to change it for anything. Do I have to change my behavior and my reactions to experiences? Oh, yes. Am I learning? Everyone is. Are we perfect? No, we're not. So the thing here is, when you release that expectation of boxing people in a certain category, when you choose truth over the comfort of having a false mask that say, oh, I'm perfect, I didn't do nothing. Sorry, Eminem comes to mind, straight up. Everybody's a Slim Shady, being honest. I haven't met, but I can count with literally, I think, less than one hand, people that are truly authentic to who they are and are not people that feel entitled to be falsely authentic. And it's very difficult to understand. Forgive quickly, reconcile slowly. See, forgiveness frees your heart, your mind, and your soul. But if you don't forgive yourself, that's not forgiveness. That is shame. And when people forcefully try to put you in that shame kind of space, it may take you a while to reconcile and understand. But in the moment you start seeing them for who they are outside the masks, based on their actions and their decisions in life, then you can reconcile it because you understand where they are in the journey and you respect it on their free will. Let's talk about let's go directly to, I will post this so you guys can have like a blueprint or a guide, mostly with scriptures, but how to practice unconditional love in relationships. You need to become the anchor of yourself. And unfortunately, before understanding my condition, I wasn't able to anchor myself at all. Even though I knew how to ground myself, there was an aspect of the energy and the condition that wouldn't allow me to process like I did before. And it was beautiful to get into the point of understanding what was an emotional dependency based on all the things that I was discovering, like remembering that I used to sit in the window waiting for my dad and I repeated the pattern, things like that, which is beautiful. When you start living from overflow and not from fear, everything changes because it's not about another, it's about you. So if your identity is in God or in Jesus' teachings and it's not reflecting in the interaction, that's not love. That may be something more as conditioned. If you have an insecurity and you have a fear and you have old wounds, that will lead to a reaction, and you expect another to not trigger you based on you saying, oh, this does trigger me, and they use it constantly. That's not love. That's provoking. That is literally a narcissistic trait of someone that really wants to have control over your emotions. And those are things that you need to start discerning. When you see someone with compassion, you stop projecting. But if you see someone through projection, you're conditioning their love. If you open yourself to ask another, help me understand how you feel right now, that's one thing. But if you tell the person they're being X and Y, then that's not love unconditionally. That is literally conditioning their love. And our society got too used to silencing the word or the voice of women. And there's two sides on this story, because when war came in, women had to go out and work and provide for their families. And then the movement of freedom, right, and rights and all that came up. And I'm not against it. What I'm against is people who now live in a different paradigm of what a relationship should be. Let's say, for an example, in order for a home to be prosperous, there needs to be a balance. If the two of them work, there needs to be a specific way that the kids are going to be taken care of, etc. But if a person has the means to allow one of the parties not to work, then it becomes a partnership. It doesn't mean that the woman cannot be a professional and have a home, but it doesn't also mean that she has to have a profession to have a home. It means that everyone decides how they want to experience a family. I love the fact that there are still people that understand the masculine and feminine energies within themselves, and they can share that from an aspect of not, I will say, genders, but interactions of unity. And that is very difficult to find, mostly with so many false stigmas that society has imposed on people. I love that the aspect of men speaking to other men, telling them what a secure man does for its women, for her to feel vulnerable and secure enough to open up. It's beautiful. Yet at times people gotta be not skeptical, but not scared either. Careful with how their kundalini awakens, because a person that is not ready for the kundalini to awake can experience more setback than a beautiful outcome. Yet in the end, it might work for them, but it doesn't work for everyone. It just depends where they are in the experience. The most sacred step is setting boundaries that protect love. I care about us, and this boundary helps me stay loving and present. If you don't know how to communicate yourself and your needs, then there's no sustainability, because there's no safety and there's no pureness in communication. And at times, I understood that I held back into voicing how I felt in a certain moment based on the confusion of the interactions. Yet in life, I learned to express myself in a beautiful way, where instead of sounding as passionate as I sounded before, I can now have a comfortable conversation with people where I share my perspective, yet not sound as imposing what I'm expressing, which is beautiful as well. Choose truth over comfort. A lot of people don't understand what true honesty is. And a lot of people believe that by being honest, they can lose whatever they have in front of them. One of the things that we need to forgive is the way that we were brought raised, because we learned that conditioning from the people around us. But if we don't learn how to leave that conditioning behind so we can unconditionally stay present instead of avoiding facing the things within us that we need to see in the mirror so we can take accountability for ourselves, and there's no growth, there's no forgiveness, and there's no, I would say, beautiful interactions. There's going to be always a conditioned interaction or a resentful interaction. So love is a daily choice and not a mood. If you want to choose to love everything, every little thing you do, that is a choice. But if you want to choose to feel offended by everything that happens in your surrounding, that is a choice as well. It's a vibration. And I know there are people that have conditions where they can actually be very volatile, but there's also medication. I know there are people that don't like to live medicated, and that is fine. But if that is affecting your interactions, then only honesty can get you into the space of understanding. Stay open without losing yourself. That is actually one of the most beautiful parts of love. I used to have the perception that giving it all the way that I thought it was the right way to give it was actually being truly unconditionally loving. And it wasn't at all. It was actually the conditioned way that I was taught that I should love another to be accepted and not rejected, which becomes why instead of just sharing what you need to share, you become an oversharer. And it's beautiful because I've been learning more about HDHD, about how people with HDHD overshare and things like that. And I felt so, I would say, identified with the condition that I thought to myself, hey, why not? Let's test and see if that is true. Because if it is true, then I know where it comes from. And it is not that I do it purposely. So, regardless of being working with stopping the need of oversharing, not personal things, but things in general, based on the fact that if anyone knows what you're up to or what you're planning, then you're opening the gate for anyone to come in. I will say, try to do it before you do it. Not to say anything that I don't want to say at this time. The essence of practicing unconditional love, it's not staying so matter what, tolerating disrespect, abandoning yourself, or suppressing your truth. Is loving from overflow, not emptiness, choosing compassion over fear, setting boundaries that protect the heart, seeing the other person through God's eyes, staying rooted in truth, not fantasy. And trust me, the world of fantasy that we Pisces creative people live in, it's beautiful. Yet it needs grounding. It needs grounding because one story can become 20 stories, and we see all the sides of the spectrum, and we feel and see all the, I would say, beginning, ending, and middles of everything. And it's beautiful to understand this. When you stay rooted in truth, you stop justifying or excusing your own behaviors and the behaviors of another. And that is beautiful because forgiving without losing discernment, it's what can set you up for success. And what I'll do is I'll just put mostly a definition of what love it's like through the gospel. I'll just do a summary, copy paste it here in Copilot and ask Copilot to actually do a summary of what we spoke about. And then just put it in the community post. So if you want to have like kind of a blueprint and do your own search within yourself and look yourself at the mirror, then you can peel the onion, you can actually defragment your hard disk, and you can actually work into transmuting, transforming, closing, and I would say taking action on living a life with a new set of eyes from the spirit instead of from the worldly aspects that have you stagnant or feeling that you don't belong. Because the sense of belonging is something that only you can actually truly feel in your heart. No one can give you access to belong anywhere if you don't feel that you can be part of it. No one can give you access to their heart if you're scared to truly open your heart. No one can know what exactly you want if you don't voice it. Um, so yeah, love without fear. Be fearless, be bold, be brave, be courageous. And yes, we all have insecurities, but that doesn't mean that our insecurities need to run the show. That means that you are aware of them, and being aware of them, you don't have to always feel that you need to protect yourself, but you can create a safe space where you can actually become more discerning and see behind the veil. All right, my people. So I know that my videos are probably not being promoted by YouTube based on the content of them. I know that people don't like long videos, but regardless of if it will help anyone, then it doesn't matter how many people see them. It matters that God has them in store for whenever somebody really needs them, they can have them. Night night.